Hello everybody, and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick, and today I have the privilege of bringing you Shovel Knight by Yacht Club Games, a game that I think has been sort of looming overhead for quite a while in a very positive way, and a game that I think a lot of us have been really excited for. And if you're not familiar, it's essentially like a lost NES game from another time. It's a brilliant retro-style platformer slash action, I guess you could say, that could equate to something like a little bit of a hybrid of DuckTales plus Mega Man with a bunch of smatterings of other types of things in there. And if you're looking for someone to give you approval to just go ahead and buy this and you don't want to sit through the video, you have my approval. It is a fantastic game, and I've actually played this whole thing from start to finish, which is very rare for me for Indie Impressions. I usually just like to jump in for the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game. And in this case, the very first time I booted up the game, I played through the entire thing. So if that's your endorsement that you're looking for, you have it. Go ahead. It is a fantastic thing to go ahead and grab. Aside from that, the one thing I'm probably going to harp on a little bit throughout this, and this is probably just for some people, it didn't really bother me in the long run much, but it is a rather difficult game, so I just want to throw that kind of caveat in there. If you're looking for a cakewalk, this is not it, and if you're someone who wants a long-term, very difficult game, or like someone who's a member of the speedrunning community, I think you'll find a lot of long-term goals in this game that'll keep you coming back to it for quite a while. So, let's go through the options very briefly, and then I'll make a new character, and we will start from scratch just to show off some of the beginning of the game, so you might get a taste of it. And that might inform you a little bit more as to what exactly you're getting into if you're maybe a little bit apprehensive. So we've got a couple of simple options here. We can show feats, basically achievements. We can pause on lost focus in the event that you change your focus away from the main window of the game. You can edit your controls, whether you're using a 360 controller or a keyboard, which in this case I am using a 360 controller, so if that helps you to know anything. The controls are fantastic, by the way, very little to adjust here. And relic input type is basically like if you were playing Castlevania and you had an alt move, like an axe or a dagger or something, it's up and attack. So it actually feels quite intuitive that way. We've got our audio sliders set for sound volume and music volume, both excellent. That's really all I could ask for in that particular case. And we've got our video settings, our screen scaling, brightness, resolution, which can be set to pretty much anything that you could ask, full screen on or off, and full screen monitor set to, well, if you have multiple monitors like I do, I have it set to my main monitor, and that's really all we need to know about there, and VSync, which happens to be enabled. So, that's pretty much all the options I could really ask for. The suite is complete. Feats are the achievements. I'm not going to really look at those right now, just in case there's any spoilery stuff, and I'll try and keep the spoilers to a bare minimum here, just going over the necessary stuff to maybe give you a taste of what we need to know out of this game in particular. So, I've moved my proper save file over to slot 9, which is a thing that I didn't actually expect to be able to do, but in this particular case is actually a copy and delete function, so I can actually move my slots around, which is a pretty handy thing to do. So we'll start a new adventure, and we'll take it from there. It does ask you to make a name for your account, so no big deal. Just put in RLS for RockLeeSmile, or I could have done Mar either way. There is our starting stats for health. No treasure whatsoever, no time on the clock. That's our magic pots that say 30 there, and we've got 0 out of 46 music notes or music pieces accrued that we end up giving to our bard that rests in our local town. There's also armor and weapons to collect, or, you know, upgrades, or side grades, I guess, in the case of the armor in some cases. Anyway, here we go. Choose his profile, yes. So I've got a little bit of basic plot stuff here. Long ago, the lands were untamed and roamed by legendary adventurers. And we get to be one of those today. Of all heroes, none shone brighter than Shovel Knight and Shield Knight. I'm going to keep trying to skip through these, and it keeps saying press start to skip ahead. But their travels together ended at the Tower of Fate when a cursed amulet wrought a terrible magic. And if you're noticing a bit of a Mega Man influence, that kind of runs through the whole game. When Shovel Knight awoke, the tower was sealed and Shield Knight was gone. Oh no. His spirit broken, a grieving Shovel Knight went into a life of solitude. Just shoveling, I guess. I mean, what else would you do at that point? Practice your art, right? But without champions, the land was seized by a vile power, the Enchantress and her Order of No Quarter. Now, the tower is unsealed and devastation looms. A new adventure is about to begin. And that is the epic journey that we will be taking on right about now. Justice in spades. Alright, so here we are, a heroic knight with a shovel instead of a sword, and that's kind of the premise that we're going after here. So, the basic gameplay unfolds just like you would expect from a Mega Man-style game, or I should say maybe in more of a broader sense, a Capcom-style game, because there's been, well, Mega Man and DuckTales kind of follow the same general idea. The way the game is structured, it actually has sort of a mini-map type thing, the way you might expect from something like Super Mario Bros. 3, where we can actually sort of wander around and pick different places to go, and the game actually has plenty of other areas to go other than just the general bosses, so it's not like a straight shot through the game, and it's not like we're going to be choosing one boss after another, and we also won't be gaining powers after we kill each of the bosses. So, you know, I'll have to apologize if maybe the Mega Man metaphor isn't 100% reliable, but it does generally get the point across to the extent that I'd like. So we just start out with a small suite of usual, pretty typical powers, nothing too crazy here. We've got our dig attack, we can down strike on things to bounce off of them, and that's about it, just jumping and striking, and that's really it. So we've got our checkpoint there. That lights up to indicate that we'll restart here if we happen to die. The game does have a sort of an interesting mechanic for how that all is handled if you do happen to die. Normally, these checkpoints, and this is just a tutorial level, so this doesn't exactly count the way that it normally would, but normally those checkpoints can be struck with our shovel and actually destroyed. And the trade-off is we can actually gain extra treasure by destroying the checkpoints at the expense of not having a checkpoint. So if we die, obviously, we'd start at whatever the last one is that actually counted. And look at this dragon here, it's adorable. I feel bad killing it, but it is what we have to do as an adventurer on certain occasions. The first level, obviously, a little bit on the easy side, despite me taking a stupid hit there from the bubble. But yeah, in general, it's just it's a kind of a nice risk-reward mechanism, and if we find ourselves getting killed, we really aren't punished all that much anyway, because we can actually just go back and grab whatever the satchels of gold are that we happen to have dropped. So we really would just lose the gold if we end up dying a second time, and I hate to bring this up again, because I'm sure it's been done in every possible coverage bit of Shovel Knight, but it does have a little bit of a Dark Souls thing going on there, maybe. Oh, tricked me with those slimes in there. So in general, the way the levels are sort of laid out, they're not exactly 100% linear. I would liken them something more to maybe like a Mega Man X instead of just regular Mega Man, just because there happen to be a lot of, I wouldn't say necessarily branching paths, but a lot of side paths, some of which do happen to be branching paths, and they often tend to result in treasures of various kinds, some of which are more useful than others. In this case, we found ourselves one of the music bits that we can bring to our bard, and the bard will buy each one of those music bits for 500 gold, and we can actually cash those in for various things like health upgrades, magic upgrades, and the occasional special item as well, and the special items being the alt items. And just in case anybody doesn't end up realizing this, if they do go ahead and pick up Shovel Knight, because it doesn't seem to be super obvious, I guess, you can actually hit select, or back as the controls may be, and you can actually change out some of our gear, being the relics or plate armors. I'm actually not sure, can we change out the plate armors when I have multiple? You might be able to only equip those from the armorer, and that's fine. You really won't need to swap them on the fly anyway, it's really just the alt items that you might need to do that with. So the level design tends to range a little bit from being rather clever to, at times, rather fiendish. I wouldn't say there are too many moments of just generally bad level design, but there are moments that I've found to be a little bit more frustrating than fun. All of those actually happen to occur in the last one-third of the game, so if you're too worried about frustration occurring, you probably won't run into it for a while. And by that point in the game, you should have quite a few different items that will help you deal with some of the various things that you run into. And this is what we like to refer to as a wall chicken. In this case, we didn't find it in a wall, but it does give you a full health increase. There's also apples, which will give you a pretty large bonus, and carrots, which will give you a somewhat smaller bonus. I think they're only a heart or two back on your HP meter. As you can tell, your HP actually only drains out in half increments at a time, so it's not quite as dire as things might look. I don't actually just have 4 hits, I actually have 8. So let's go off to this side path here, and we do happen to have some bubbles. Run a little bubble hopping challenge here, and we'll make it across, and I believe we've got another bit of music on the other side to lighten our hearts. And I like to check all of these walls just in case. They seem to be quite into putting various, you know, hidden things within hidden things at times. So you've got to really be careful about how you approach stuff. And all the jumping and the puzzles as far as that goes in the early area, really nothing too crazy. But, you know, they get into some pretty wild stuff later on, and stuff that, as a Mega Man player, I've even found to be rather challenging. Although I would say that very rarely does the challenge actually get any worse than a Mega Man game. I would say it all seems to fall in that same realm. And I find, if anything, the one thing that I would maybe cite as a bit of a negative is that I feel like the game really does seem to rely on the Mega Man archetype very heavily. Not so badly that it's like it's a real detriment or anything, but I just feel like there was so much opportunity brought up in a lot of the framing and the way that things are set up in this game that it almost feels like I wish they struck out a little bit into their own realm a little bit more than even they did. Because I just generally loved playing it, and it was sad when it ended, and I felt like there was more ground to cover still within some of the scope of the things that they'd set up. But thankfully there's enough content that, you know, I was able to get about a little bit over 4 hours out of this, and I didn't look for all of the secrets, so I'm sure there was more to be gleaned from that if I went back and played it more. And there is actually a New Game Plus as well that I could get a whole bunch more gameplay out of, although it actually seemed very, very difficult. From what I was told, it seemed like it removes all of the checkpoints, or very many of the checkpoints, which is going to be a huge problem on some of the harder levels later on. But like I said, you do get some things to help combat that. And a little advanced strat here, if you were wondering, you can actually get out of down strikes by just doing a regular attack, which I didn't realize until like 3/4 through the game. And hopefully nobody counts that as a spoiler, because I don't intend it to be anything like that. It's just sort of one of those standard gameplay mechanic things that often tends to get passed over if you're not paying particularly close attention to what you're doing. Now each one of the levels does sort of follow again, one of the archetypes of sort of a Mega Man-like equation where there's some sort of a gimmick, and I use the word hesitantly because it's not necessarily like... It doesn't come across like a gimmick, it comes across like you're trying to differentiate the levels from each other. But the bosses of each area do seem to have some sort of pervasive trait that manifests in the actual level, and I find that they do a really good job in integrating them in ways that are sort of unique and play with the rules of what you would expect from a traditional action platformer. But again, within the scope of what you might expect from like a Mega Man game. So, you know, if you're someone who's never played a Mega Man game, my apologies, many of these references might end up lost on you. And we do have a wall chicken here as we head into our first sort of mini-boss. And don't get the wrong idea, this guy is not representative of the difficulty of most of the bosses. The first couple are pretty much easy mode. I knew you'd show your face sooner or later, the Cerulean Coward. He happens to be blue. I wonder if there's any coincidence with another game. Turn back, Shovel Knight. There's nothing here for you anymore. Stand aside, Black Knight. I have no quarrel with you. I must return to the Tower of Fate. Your time away has dulled your senses, can't you see? Well, I can't because my senses are dulled. This entire valley has been conquered by the Enchantress, and her invincible Knights of the Order of No Quarter stand between you and the tower. But none of that matters because anyone after the Enchantress has to go through me. Steal thy shovel! And if I haven't harped on it enough yet, and I probably haven't, the soundtrack of this game is absolutely fantastic and would absolutely, basically necessitate a purchase all on its own. But I'm not sure you'll even necessarily have to because the Bard is pretty generous, and I think just like has a sound test right built into it. Although I might have to go back and confirm that. So this guy has less health than generally the bosses tend to. Something like maybe half of the normal health that they do, and he's not all that hard. He's just basically going to wander around a little bit, attack the ground, and I'm just going to make a big dingus out of myself and stand under him for a while. He's going to do a Hadouken into me, and I'll just try and pogo off his head a little bit more, and that'll be that. One more strike, please. There we go. Get a mid-air strike. So I remain victorious. And I mentioned there was like that SMB style or SMB3 style mini-map thing that goes on, and there's actually some kind of like hammer bros that'll wander around and actually will engage you, and that's the Order of No Quarter. And all of those boss fights tend to give you little rewards of one kind or another. So then between each level we seem to get these little vignettes of our character falling asleep at the campfire, and occasionally we'll go into a dream sequence where we have to rescue our shield knight as she falls through the air. I'm not actually sure 100% if you have to catch her, but I've always tried my best because, you know, you don't want her to hit the ground. That's really mean. Oh, it tells you to catch her, but what happens if you don't? I don't know. I don't want to find out. I want to be a good knight. And occasionally enemies will actually get involved with those sequences, and of course be a good, be a good little Boy Scout and put out the fire, and only you, it says. So, this is where we're introduced to the world map, and a little bit of it is revealed. Like I said, there's a total of 8 bosses, and we get to see 2 at first, and then we get a set of 3 and a set of 3, and then things get wild from there. And not to spoil anything, but, you know, it follows, again, a very similar Mega Man style to it. So we do have a little town. Definitely gives me a little bit of a Zelda 2 feel. Halt, no weapons. We have enough to worry about lately without everyone swinging swords around. Oh, haha, that's no weapon, just a shovel. You may enter then. And don't forget, press up to talk to everyone, of course. I just love living in a village. It's the best. Yeah, it's pretty sweet, right? That's gotta be Link, right? Can't go in any of the buildings in this particular case, but thankfully we only need to speak to a few people here. Hail, traveler! I am but a simple bard, but I have a big problem. I've lost all my music sheets. My entire repertoire lays scattered across the land. If you ever find a music sheet, return it to me, and I shall reward you handsomely. So I found a couple of music sheets. I will sell those with no problem, because there's actually no reason to hang on to those. And I will be rewarded for each one. There's a dear lady here who we can talk to if we choose. And in this building, this is where we would get HP upgrades on the left and magic upgrades on the right. These are accomplished through getting meal tickets from this goat character here who actually sells them, and then occasionally you're rewarded with a meal ticket sort of randomly through rather difficult quests, I suppose. So why not buy my meal ticket and help narrow my options? Sure. How much do they cost? Well, they cost 1,000, so I'll buy one. In this case, take that up here, and we'll redeem it with the gastronomer to get an extra HP added onto our actual health bar, because just having the meal ticket by itself isn't going to do that for you. The game is thankfully pretty good about reminding you when you have something that needs to be redeemed at the town. There's actually like a little thing that'll pop up at the bottom of your mini-map that says if you've got some kind of a reward, whether that be a music sheet or one of those meal tickets as well. So we can come down here, we can talk with various people of the town. They all have different functions, or we can come in here and talk to, this is Chester over here, who basically is your item vendor. He'll show up and give you stuff occasionally if you found it in various levels. And right off the bat, he has either a fishing pole or a chaos sphere, which is actually a pretty handy alt weapon that we could purchase right from the start if we really wanted to. And you know what? I have a little extra money, so why don't I grab that? Now we have an alt weapon, at least something to put in there. And up here, we can talk to the Triple Acolyte, who will give us a chalice. These are basically like E-tanks that will fill up our health again if we end up filling them with Ichor. And I'm actually not sure how to do that because I managed to get through the entire game without buying a single chalice, so there wasn't an achievement for that. I just didn't happen to talk to that NPC, so your loss is my gain. Now I know about it. And we can also come over here, break this wall, and there's an NPC that we can do a little bit of a gambling game with if we so choose. This lady on the left here, who looks like some sort of a tree witch or something, she actually tells you all your stats, so if you're curious about how many deaths you've had or your in-game time or anything like that, she tends to be able to give you that information. And there's some achievements associated with things you can do in the town, but I think we're pretty much good on that. I'm just gonna do a little... Oh, well, she walked away. This is how you get up to this one music note, and I will just spoil the one. There's a chest up here, and that one bit of music, and if we jump off of her, whatever this little device is that we use to carry these buckets, I guess we're able to get up there rather easily. So what's in this chest? All the more treasure for us. It's totally fine to spend your money right away, because there's plenty of opportunities to get more. And that's generally how things proceed. So it's like there's going to be a village sequence, you go restock, maybe you'll do some little side quest. Like as you can see, there's that gem down there where we can go and use a specific item that we haven't actually found yet in one of the levels. And then we can go get some money, go to one of the actual levels, try and fight somebody, and if we're successful, get a bunch more money. And there's actually a couple of villages along the way, as well as a couple of little alternate attractions, like I mentioned, the characters that'll zoom in and out. The Trupel Pond is actually a friendly zone where we can go to, I think, go fishing, and there's just a dude there that we can talk to. I didn't actually really mess with that at all. But yeah, it's generally the progress in this game goes by kind of fast. It feels like the type of game that could go, or you wish would go on forever, but just because it's rather engrossing and engaging, it seems like it's very easy to just pass a lot of time. And I didn't get stuck all that many times either throughout the majority of the game until I got toward the end, so right at the beginning it just feels right. And although the levels tend to go by very quickly, there's enough side things to do, and enough, even within the levels, enough side quests and side secrets to find that you will find yourself spending quite a while looking for stuff. So this particular night, the gimmick of this level seems to be lava that falls down from the ceiling, and also little tomes that you can open up that will cause platforms to spawn. And I wonder if I could kind of cheese that by going around on the left. Probably, but, you know, I'm not good enough to do it. So we'll continue to grab some treasure as we finish up. I don't think I want to show too much more here, because I really don't want to give away too much about the levels. But there are some very interesting and strange enemies that we'll run into along the way, like these little mice on helicopters for whatever reason. Very interesting and strange enemy design. And some really wild stuff. There was actually a thing that I ran into about 3/4 through the game that I had never seen anything like that in a video game before, and it just kind of boggled my mind in a good way. So there's plenty of surprises and just wild stuff, as well as some really cool and interesting challenges that await you further in. And if you get too stuck, you at least have some fantastic music to listen to along the way as well. And just look out for any little sigils or embossment or anything along the walls as you go, because that's usually a way that they're going to indicate some sort of a secret. And that was me breaking one of the checkpoints. I didn't have to actually do that, but I chose to, because you can get a little bit of extra treasure that way, and that just makes your life a little bit easier, provided you don't end up dying along the way. And there are ample opportunities to do that, so don't worry about it. You can definitely fall off in a number of ways. There's a lot of one-hit kills in this game, so even though having a lot of health looks like it would be, you know, the thing that would make the game kind of easy mode, it's not necessarily that that's the case, and there's a lot of alternate challenges, too, that you can undertake, even outside of just destroying all the checkpoints to try and make the game harder if you're into that kind of thing. When I first started this up, I was thinking maybe this would be the type of game that I might be interested in speedrunning, and I think that although that might be a viable option for some people, maybe I'm not quite the right person to do it, because it is really challenging later on, and I don't want to stress that too much, but I also want to make sure that you get the point. It is a really hard game. So this one, we're going to jump across these platforms, make sure we time it as well as we can so we don't end up getting smashed with lava. And if we stand here in this little silhouetted spot, and I think we have to press down, it'll actually spin us around and take us to a little secret realm, kind of DuckTales style. I didn't actually notice those blocks up there last time I was here. And we get one shot to make it across this and to come back successfully, because if we burn up all those bridges, we're not going to have a way across. So this is where we would normally meet Chester in the game, and he's the guy that, as unfortunate as it is, we actually find a chest, and he has the item that's in the chest and then sells it to us. So it's kind of a funny way to get around that whole thing. So in this case, one of the best items, the Flare Wand, and one that I used throughout the entire run, definitely worth buying. And all of these items are just sort of passively sitting now, and we can always get back to them. So I'll switch back from my Chaos Sphere over to this. It actually does it automatically when you first find the item. And we'll head back in this direction. And maybe that'll about do it. I kind of really am hesitant to show too much more. I was thinking about maybe getting to a boss fight, but if I do that, it's still quite a bit of the level left. And maybe you'll just have to take my word, but the level design is generally quite good. So we'll ride that back across. Lots of ladders in this one. Lots of ladders and vertical stuff. But yeah, just go buy Shovel Knight. If you had any more questions about it, feel free to ask me in the comments. I am happy to answer them, and I'll stay away from giving any spoilers wherever is possible. I feel like I've shown enough of the game to give you a good idea of what to expect, but you never know. Sometimes you forget something in the haste of it all. Oh, you know, one thing I actually did forget. One of the things that I found to be a little bit on the frustrating and difficult side is there tends to be a lot of auto-scroller levels, and what I mean by that is levels where the scrolling of the level will actually take place automatically, like you don't... Yeah, there I go, repeating the actual thing and defining it as such, but basically those levels like in Mario, where you would find that the level's going automatically and you have to keep up with it, and if you don't, you end up getting killed. I find those to be rather frustrating, and there's a bunch of times where it seems like you get punished for being fast, and that's just kind of frustrating in general, because I try to stay towards the front of those types of things. But it's not like it's relied upon so heavily that you can't get around it or anything. Just a personal gripe, I suppose. So if you're somebody who gets frustrated with that kind of thing easily, just be aware you're going to be jumping into a bunch of those as you get further on. And they're also integrated into the actual levels themselves. This beautiful griffin. I'm going to kind of cheese the game here and shoot it with fireballs. Only susceptible to damage in its head. So I'll just... Ooh, I was going to hang back there and try and play smart, but I didn't play smart enough. I think it's a... Yeah, it's a double, and I keep forgetting about the second one. Oh, right, I have, like, no magic to start out with. It's okay, I can actually take a bunch of damage to begin, because I actually end up getting a wall chicken from defeating this enemy. And there we go, back to full health again. And so far I've defeated all of these checkpoints, so I should probably just continue it and finish off this level if I can, to at least show off a little bit, because why not, right? Spent the time to try and do well, and this is actually like a little alternate area that I don't know if you're necessarily supposed to find on your first go. There's some kind of, I think probably a music scroll over here, which I kind of wanted to grab. And another wall that we can break open with a little bit of clever shovelry. Also, anytime you find one of these banners, they generally tend to have some sort of something behind them. Well, not every single time, but very often they seem to have a reward for you, so it's worth jumping around if you ever find them. Is there something over here too? Ah, yes, of course. Sometimes there's even walls that just don't have anything to demarcate that they are breakable. And look at all that. I'm actually doing pretty well for treasure. Partially due to the fact that I'm breaking all the checkpoints. Oh, why am I trying to go up across there? But also just due to the fact that, well, just been grabbing a lot of treasure and going through a lot of secret areas. Art, by the way, is really beautiful in this game. I don't think I've spent enough time mentioning that, but the backgrounds have a lot of great details in them. The character itself has a lot of character. There you go, defining the thing with the thing again. And there's even a really funny cameo in this from a character that I never ever would have expected to see, and I don't want to spoil who it is. But if you've been following the indie community, you might find someone that you run into that you wouldn't have expected at all. So we got another wall to break here over on the left. And another gem inside. I can't remember how long this level is, but I feel like I'm getting toward the end of it, hopefully. This guy doesn't have much fight in him. I'll just go over him, passing up some gems on the wall, and of course a secret gem there. Could break all of those to perhaps get a little bit extra too. Ah, this is where you get to see about the tomes, that's right. And that was a particularly lucrative checkpoint that actually leads over to another secret area that I'm actually going to pass up right now just because I don't want to belabor this too much longer. But yeah, you hit that, that's going to cause those pages to appear as platforms. And then we almost have like a Mega Man style disappearing block puzzle. Not quite as brutal as many of them, but brutal enough that you can actually get killed here, and if I do, it's going to be pretty funny, and I'll probably end the episode at that point. By the way, each time I bounce off of this, each pogo actually resets the timer on it, so in case you were wondering, it's actually safe to be doing what I was just doing there. Not to do that, though. We're going to wait through one more cycle, and that actually should have killed me, but it didn't, because I was very lucky. Another free wall chicken right here, but they're relying on you getting hit by those. And I believe we have... Oh, we've got another griffin. I'm actually just going to pogo right over him because I don't feel like fighting him right now, and see if we can perhaps survive the boss at the end. I was a little put off at first by the distance that Shovel Knight's shovel tends to hit things at, but once you start getting a bunch of extra options in terms of attacks, you find that things just really do even out pretty nicely. I use my shovel probably to downstrike more than I even do to use it as like a traditional attack. I'm trying to be careful here and mostly hit him from the top. Oh, he got a stun there, knocked my shovel into the ground, and that could have been a big problem for me, but luckily I knew that attack was coming. And we're doing just fine so far. Getting a little bit extra in terms of hits in, where I actually wouldn't have even expected. And we're actually just going to finish him off with fireballs, because why not? That actually went quite well. I only took like one hit throughout that boss fight. So, I think we will leave things off at this point. We're going to end up back at the campfire, and then we can go and invest our gold into another set of power-ups. There's even some armors and things later on that we can end up getting, and they actually do change the color of the character, which is a nice touch. I really love this scene, too. The colors here are so pretty. And just in general, this game has a really good use of color palette, so, you know, if you're looking for a game for the art and you really like the 8-bit style, you couldn't really ask for much better than this. You can tell that a lot of attention and care has gone into every freaking area throughout this entire game. Like, they really did a great job. And you get to put out that fire every single time and get a little bit more treasure. So, if I haven't made a compelling enough case for you, I think you should probably go buy Shovel Knight, unless, again, you're somebody who's really put off by some very difficult gameplay. Even if you are someone like that, you should probably get it anyway, because there's enough things that they can give you throughout the course of the game that'll probably make you able to get through those difficult moments. So, I will have a link, of course, in the description of this video if you want to go grab the game. It is $15 on Steam as of the time of this recording. If you can find it on sale, well, I find the price point is pretty compelling as it is, but, you know, any less than that, absolutely buy it for that as well. But I will leave you for another day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode on Shovel Knight. If you did, consider leaving a like on the video, because that helps me out quite a bit. And be sure to come back again tomorrow. New episodes of Indie Impressions go up every single day without fail, so I hope to see you back for that again. And of course, if you're enjoying the channel, consider subscribing, because that also helps me out quite a bit as well. And then you'll be able to see whatever new videos go up right when they go up. So, we can actually... Oh, forgot about this. This is the sound test area, so we can actually play whatever music we want here, which is fantastic. I love having a sound test, it's so good. Anyway, I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a fantastic night. Talk to you later.